Hello everyone and welcome to my new Tier 100 build, Meteor X Fall. We'll see multiple Tier 100 runs and Uber Lilith finish with all mechs able to be skipped because DPS check is enough. I'd like to start this time with a big thank you to all for the amazing support you showed me again in this season too. I started my YouTube journey with my first video just 7 months ago and recently passed 6,000 subscribers. That amount of support for me is one of the most amazing things that happened in my life and cannot possibly thank you enough. For it, I tried raise myself to expectations. I might have failed. I don't know, but I tried my best. This is my 6th Tier 100 build for this season and look forward to create more, with next builds being ice skills. Although I need to point out a short 1-minute note, as I've got many requests already if possible update previous builds because of the addition of Ring Tal Rasha. I am just one guy. I am theory crafting my builds, doing my math spreadsheet needed, editing videos myself, etc. While I am very grateful for your support, please understand, the way I chose to handle my YouTube journey is not one successful. And no matter what, I will stick to my way. I never did or will never do clickbaits, or self-title my videos sensational, or as being best whatever, or spamming one meta build for views over and over, as example ball this season, and all other sort of tricks that for me are both disrespectful to my viewers and to myself. The benefits or financial gains of doing those sort of things are below my values in life. Respect others and myself are above. Why I am saying this boredom note, because I can't continue this rhythm and I do not want for people to be disappointed. I push myself because of expectations, but again, real life does not allow me to continue so. For future builds this season, I have to slow down a bit. Most likely I will finish at most one new build every week. As for updates, the new Ring Tal Rasha is most likely biz in any Sorc builds. Just requires few adjustments to have 3 or more elements. I will try till the end of the week to update all my build videos with secondary planners for Tal Rasha too. Thank you for understanding, and if you did not already close the video with such a note, I'll go back to the full build info. In the planner, you will see all the recommended affixes. I do miss some of them as I had to improvise a bit as a solo player. Your armor will still be capped for Tier 100, and resistances again capped. Health will be 13,000 and armor close to 9,000 before disobedience buff, as I recommend going second armor plus affix on amulet, devouring blaze rank, 1 damage reduction and mana cost reduction. Our movement speed will be maxed from boots and attack speed cap with vampiric power and ancient flame aspect. Armor on amulet because of the unique Godslayer helm edition. This is the first build I do use a unique helm. Sure, in previous ones you can just throw Shaco and get free DPS boost. But as I said, I do not want to make builds dependent on uber uniques this season. Maybe next season when they are more familiar to the majority. In my Meteor build, Godslayer is better than Shaco because the main damage is X-Fall ring triggers, and all our focus needs to be on buffing multipliers that affect it, not other skills. The others are just supporting it. To make room for 2 unique rings, we cannot play any mana aspect rings. This is why Thibaut is mandatory for mana sustain and the passive skill tree I made, plus resource generation on offhand. You will rather have crit chance instead of cooldown reduction. We are more than good cooldowns as Tal Rasha provides extra cooldown affix. This time I capped resistances by Paragon, but with the missing 9% from passive tree potent warding during fight. So do not worry, all resistances are capped 70% or more. It is the first time I use it, so because I did want to focus Paragon also on damage reduction from burning and vulnerable, as we miss ever-living aspect when adding the Godslayer helm, next to the Vampiric Powers. Keep note, we do have all 3 elements fire, cold, lightning to get 3 times the buff on Tal Rasha ring. But I did add also poison Vampiric Power as 4th element buff multiplier. Is worth as is permanent buff unlike domination only on crowd controlled. Tal Rasha ring buffs are refreshed regardless of what type of element damage you do. So you only need to continue fighting and keep 4 stacks of the multipliers even if you apply poison once. As you can see in my buff bar, I permanent have 4 stacks of buff. We do want to apply vulnerable permanent because Frigid Fate in my Paragon is maxed at 30% multiplier. Metamorph is just to provide extra unstoppable for Thibaut mana gain. Do not bother dodge into monsters for vulnerable as Lucky Hit or even Frozen Orb handles it. Ravenous and Ancient Flame aspect caps attack speed. Next, the skill tree followed by Paragon Board. First 2 points for enchantment and to unlock core skills. Frozen Orb as second enchantment. You might think it can suit better Firewall as enchant to trigger more X-Fall Ring, but is actually triggered more often if you add Firebolt and Frozen Orb. Plus Orb enables cold damage for another Tal Rasha buff multiplier. Firewall enchant triggers just few times, and most of times you already killed everything when you trigger it. And even if not so, Firewall does not trigger that often another X-Fall proc. Like said during gear info, I go for Potent Ward to cap 70% missing resistances this time, because of Paragon focus to extra damage reduction as we miss Ever-Living aspect. Why not just add few of all resistance gems instead of Potent Ward? Because this build does not have often hard crowd control, we freeze few times with Orb on isolated targets, but in rest we immobilize only. They fight back, so you need more armor than before for comfortable survive. Yes, the gameplay you see had only 7,500 armor in tier 100 before Disobedience buff, and I was fine because of so many damage reduction buffs, but can see sometimes close range they hit me hard because of armor penalty. So with armor affix that I miss on Amulet, you will be at 9,000 armor before Disobedience. As usually, I go for mandatory Sorc passives for comfortable survive and to enable barrier synergy, mana shield, and protection passive. Now on to the Meteor itself. We still want 5 points here as he still has decent damage, even if our main damage is X-Fall Ring proc. But on the passives, pick the one with faster casting. Is not worth his Immobilize passive as Meteor is just too slow. We do immobilize often by Lucky Hit with the next passive we take Crippling Flames. Going for Hoarfrost, we have like permanent chill buff multiplier and sometimes freeze buff on isolated targets. Ultimate for infinite mana when have some gaps. On the map there should be 0 issue mana, with Thibaut and Fiery Surge passive, and the Lucky Hit restore mana that I miss it on gloves, but I do recommend it in Planner. With the bosses in tier 100, try to time your ultimate after your initial first burst, so then he should die in the burst after ultimate. Isu Ferocity for crit chance and to enable Ancient Flame aspect attack speed. Enchantments. Firebolt will enable more X-Fall procs. Frozen Orb as second enchantment. You might think it can suit better Firewall as enchant to trigger more X-Fall Ring, but is actually triggered more often if you add Firebolt and Frozen Orb. Next, the Paragon Board. All resistances are capped by Paragon when you max level, Elementalist Glyph leveled, and have expected end-game gear item power as jewelry provides innate all resistances. Sure, as mentioned in the video, with 9% missing on some of resistances that will be covered by Potent Warding passive. So you do not need bother resistances on gear unless you are on leveling process. Needs to adjust a bit by gems till you are all set. All important rare nodes requirements are met if follow my build. And as you will notice this time, I grabbed supplementary damage reduction nodes for vulnerable enemies and burning enemies. This is because, 1, we don't have a place for the ever-living aspect, so to counter that and freely use Godslayer Helm. Second, we do not have hard crowd control like in previous builds. We only immobilize. They fight back. We have to hold better. Going for more DPS instead of those, it can be your personal choice. But I cannot recommend builds so. I see fun in this game if I comfortable survive. Not to be stressed dying who knows what. The build has decent damage already for current game balance. I grabbed the Lucky Hit here. It is worth with such low investment as we do go for Frigid Fate anyway. Frigid reaching 30% multiplier as buff non-physical on the board. Have to mention, if not already familiar, Frigid Fate buff applies to all your damage, not to only cold. It is just dependent on your cold damage stat. As said, you will see on Burning Instinct board, a bit more defense approach this time. Grabbed extra armor and damage reduction from elites and burning. Easy to flex if you want, the points on the right side, but I do not recommend do that in a build that doesn't hard crowd control often. The max dexterity glyph goes to Flame Feeder, not destruction. because with the 2 unique rings, we are not over the top with crit chance. We do have high crit chance, but not enough to worth destruction here. Flame Feeder is permanent. In the end, saying it again, thank you all for the amazing support, and as explained in the video intro, I do need to slow down a bit with playing and content creation because of real-life pressure. I will still try my best to create new builds, but at most once a week, and for a while to keep such pace of new content. Thanks for understanding too. Although if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment on my videos, and when time allows me, I will try to reply.